Welcome to this episode of Seasoned Scholar. Today, our guest, we have with us a very energetic and highly qualified analytical chemist, Professor Daniel D.S. No. He has been associated with Water Science Laboratory for over 30 years at University of Nebraska Lincoln. And I had an opportunity to spend almost a year under his very close proximity. So we will have the three part of the conversation. One about the journey, second about something learning from you, and then the third part, knowing the human side of not professor, not doctor, but just Dan. So knowing human being and like that. So, but let's start with becoming the Professor Dan. So in this journey in motivation, can you briefly just let us know about your journey? Because we can have a summary and then we can have a little bit talk on each point.
Okay. So how far back should I go?
No, you can start with the birth.
Oh, okay.
And even if you remember anything about the past life.
No, I don't need to go quite that far back.
In Hinduism, we believe in the birth, several births. Right. But yeah, so, I mean, where you grown, was it a very big town or a small town? From where you are coming? Those things will be essential for our audience. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I was born in a small town in southwest Iowa. That's in the heart of the United States. I guess my first memories of kind of being interested in science would have to do with interacting with my neighbors. My neighbors across the street were all very active in doing science. They were probably teenagers at the time, but I'd say that influence probably prompted me to go into and do more in science than almost anything else. They collected bugs, rocks. They actually trapped birds and drew their wings. Basically, just were amazing young scientists to be living next door to. And then the other thing that I recall was working with my grandfather. My grandfather was the manager of our local telephone company, and he encouraged me to explore electronics, work with electrical design. I got to spend a lot of time in our telephone company and take things apart, build things like an electromagnet. So I think those two things together really contributed a lot to me wanting to go into study science, both as a student and then later as a career.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is just recently somebody has told that he used to fix. So, I mean, the scientists are two types. One is like child from and somebody who decides later on that I have to do PhD. So when you realize that, oh, I have to do PhD?
Well, that actually didn't come till probably in the middle of my master's program. So I worked a lot on a farm. My stepfather ran a farm, and I learned how to work on a farm as a teenager. I had an opportunity as a high school student to go into farming. I could have rented ground and started farming on my own, but I really liked the idea of taking science and learning to study the environment and wanted to spend time outdoors doing that. So I'd say my high school guidance counselor kind of guided me towards studying geology. And that's when I applied for working on my bachelor's degree in geology in Missouri. So this is probably back in 1977. This is quite a while ago. And while I was working on my undergraduate degree, I had the good fortune to interact with some young PhDs. One was my undergraduate advisor, and he encouraged me to take hard classes that would prepare me for graduate school. And then the other I worked with very closely was a paleontologist. And through his, I guess, guidance, I got to do some field work. I did some excavations for fossils and actually applied some of my interests in geochemistry to the work that he was doing. And he ended up applying to Louisiana, LSU, for his PhD. So I thought, well, I'll apply there for my master's degree. I got accepted and got support for a graduate assistantship at Louisiana State University. And while I was there, I met a very, very thoughtful and really extremely intelligent geochemist. He was a brine geochemist that kind of fostered my interest in geochemistry and groundwater and even just aquatic chemistry. So I'd say my experience at LSU really kind of pushed me to go into getting a PhD.
Oh, yeah, I mean, so even if science has been attractive for you since very beginning, but the PhD will be done that you decided mid the master. What about your bachelor? You in the bachelor, which subject did you pursue and why?
As a bachelor's degree, it was in geology. So I took the kind of the traditional courses in geology, along with soil science. So I became exposed to geochemistry and soil chemistry as an undergraduate student. I remember my introductory geochemistry textbook I would take with me when I was working at the telephone company and just read each chapter over and over again because I really was fascinated by the application of chemistry
Yeah, this is
to the environment.
so. I mean, yeah, you did from Missouri State University, right? Your geology.
Yeah.
So your subsidiary subjects were chemistry. I mean, I want to understand that why you become such a good analytical chemist.
Well, I think it's a number of factors. I think every professor, instructor that I encountered really encouraged me to explore the use of chemical technology to study the environment. As an undergraduate student, I got a chance to use X-ray diffraction on that research project that my paleontologist mentor was working on. So I got a chance to use X-ray diffraction and EDS. I got to use a little bit of scanning electron microscopy on that. And then as a master's student, I was able to do all of my own chemical work from basic titrations to ion chromatography and ICP OES. So, and it wasn't really until my PhD work that I really sort of got steeped in analytical chemistry. I had taken almost all the classes that I had needed for my doctorate work at LSU. So I ended up taking almost all chemistry classes at the University of Nebraska.
Yeah, actually, what I feel is that just a question that raised from your answer is that because you told that in childhood you were good at circuits, good at instrumentation. So is it instrumentation, the affinity for the instrumentation that helped you to become a good at machines, or it is chemistry? Because many times I think it can be two things. I mean, being a chemistry also, so analyte is important or this instrument is important?
Well, I think it has to be both. You have to be comfortable working with technology. And I've noticed that many students that come through the laboratory are a little bit wary of working with technology. And you have to overcome that fear. And I had done that as a boy. I enjoyed working with technology. I wasn't afraid of any type of electrical equipment. I took gasoline engines apart and put them back together. I just loved working on technology as a boy. And then learning chemistry later, I understood how we could use that technology to study the environment. So I think you need both an appreciation and understanding of the technology, and then a really deep understanding of the science of analytical chemistry.
So actually, because I myself consider myself at least hydrogeochemistry, if not geochemist. So that's why I will have a little bit more question on this side. As a graduate, I mean, doing graduate of the geology is very fundamental to becoming what you become or what a earth scientist will become, because I have chemistry in the graduation. So in that case, I do understand things, but when it comes to the rock, I really, of course, chemistry also applies there. But my point is that from geology, geochemistry branch out, right? But there are several other branches also. So when and why you think that this is the geochemistry that you are going to pursue?
Well, I think I mentioned as an undergraduate student, I just became fascinated with geochemistry. I mean, that was really that sparked my interest. My introductory chemistry classes were okay. They weren't that exciting. But my geochemistry classes, I was fascinated with that.
So I mean, what I wanted to know is that whether sometimes it is teacher or it is some, of course, in your case, it seems, it seems like you're, since the childhood you had the relationship with the field and then chemistry, so it becomes the geochemistry. But because you told that fossils, so you could have gone to the paleontology. You could have gone to so that's why I am asking.
So what made my decision? Yeah, why did I go into chemistry as opposed to paleontology? That's a good question. I don't really know, because I could have become a paleontologist, but there was, I think I didn't see as much of a future in paleontology as what I saw in geochemistry. So that's why.
Actually, I wanted you to bring it on that, because some of the interviews that I have conducted so far, the speaker told me that the trending thing and the future, that's what you have said, that we have to see that this subject, this topic, what kind of prospect it has.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, and I had the privilege to look at your PhD thesis in reality, and the uranium series nuclide and those things I have seen, and it is really nice work. And how about your relationship with your PhD supervisor? Or you say that how did you choose your supervisor? Or is there something to worry about when we select a PhD supervisor?
Well, I remember when I was looking at places to do a PhD, I had decided I wanted to work in groundwater. And I think it was just a chance of reading the journal Groundwater that really gave me the incentive to focus on that area. And there were not, at that time, there were probably only half a dozen schools that kind of offered a program in groundwater throughout the US.
Wow.
So I wrote to the people that were working in that field, and one of them was my PhD, would become my PhD advisor. He was just getting started here at Nebraska. And he, in his response letter, this is back when we wrote letters, and through the mail, so it took quite a bit of time, but he encouraged me to apply. And he also said that he might have some projects that I could work on that would fund my PhD work.
So may we know his name?
Roy Spalding.
Yeah. So during your PhD, I mean, of course, groundwater here also, again, I share love with that. The groundwater and hydrogeochemistry is I started with groundwater chemistry and all that, my introduction to this field. During PhD is anything that I want to know that that during PhD you had this scholarship. Did you marry at that time or you married after PhD? And how did you handle the transition from the PhD to professional life?
What was the first question?
That about your marriage. I mean, did you marry before while doing PhD, before PhD, or because that is also a tricky part of the young scientist. That is.
So I met my wife during my senior year as an undergraduate, and she actually moved to Louisiana with me, and I proposed, and we got married during my first year as a graduate student.
Oh.
So I was a master's student when I got married, so it's quite a while ago.
And the second part was that how did you handle the transition? That when PhD was finishing, did you do some postdoc or you just joined the job?
Well, I had actually, I don't know if you'd call it the good fortune or not so good fortune, but my PhD advisor was funded to start the water sciences laboratory here at the University of Nebraska while I was working in my PhD. So I applied for and obtained the lab manager position and the original lab manager position at the laboratory that I now direct in the middle of my PhD. So I worked full time while I finished my doctorate degree. So it's like a PhD, or it's like a postdoc, but it's actually way harder to do things that way, working full time and finishing your doctorate. So I would not recommend that to most people. It would just, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, actually, so I can understand that still you are saying that I don't know whether it was a good fortune or bad. One senior told me that if you are a PhD, the best thing that you can do, or you can have a lot of satisfaction when you produce a PhD. So do you have a certain regret or certain that okay, I should have, or something like that?
If I had it to do over again, how would I have done it? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. So I mean, as a opposite to, or did you try from the water science laboratory that I would move out as an like academician and something?
Yeah, I think when I finally defended my doctorate, I was thinking about moving to another institution, and I interviewed for some other jobs. So, you know, I considered going out on my own, but I also found what I was doing at the University of Nebraska very rewarding. I could see that this was a place where I could advance and learn more and do more as a young faculty member. The other thing that played into that decision of not going to another institution was I had 2 children. So my first was born in the middle of my PhD, and my second was born when I defended my PhD. So having starting a young family and not wanting to uproot them kind of also played into.
No, I mean, I would say that it is the fortune of luck of UNL and also the UNL staff that such thing happened to them. Because I have personal experience of looking at WSL. I mean, this is a very nice concept which should be replicated in other universities. And if those laboratories have a director like you who love to be at the instrument and try to, I mean, who is a, because I have seen that many people become very obsessed with electronics, but not with the interpretation of data. But you are like a complete package. You get into the interpretation. You understand the process, and you understand the instrument. And so I mean, this is just a sheer luck, and that is why I feel that a lot of faculty could do well at UNL.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think having the focus on water and the environment and the technology together is pretty unusual. There are not many laboratories like ours. And that's one of the reasons I think we've been in business for over 30 years, is that we're unique, and we have a mission. You know, we're really focused on the science of water resources, and we're able to apply the type of analytical chemistry that you wouldn't find just anywhere. So it really is a pretty unique facility, and I'm very happy to have worked and done my research through the lab.
Yeah, yeah, and through, I mean, so much impactful new contaminants. I mean, even your ground floor, so many papers. Even that is I used to spend a lot of time there, because they all papers were very milestone, and I know that even citizenship science. I mean, several aspects. The very geochemical processes that we just published about arsenic, or I mean, or it could be very, very new emerging pollutant that could be analyzed under your mentorship. I wish I'm very greedy about that thing, that if there is new contaminants, I want to understand that. So can you tell me about some of the milestone? Of course, I know that you have been adjunct professor, you have been, I mean, your progression of the career, that I know. But something that, something when your heart says eureka, eureka, or something that such kind of moment.
Yeah, I don't know, eureka is the right word, but I think an appreciation of what we can sense through the chemical technology. And I'll relate one experience that I recall. So for my doctorate, I got to use a multi-channel analyzer and alpha pulse height analysis. This is for uranium isotope analysis. And just to see, in my mind, to see the spectra that's produced from alpha emission. I mean, that sounds really technical, but to me, it's beautiful to be able to see and understand what that spectra means. That really, that had a big impact on me. It had so much of an effect that I took a copy of the spectra and the uranium source and showed my grandparents, because I was so excited. You know, they didn't really understand what it was, but they could see that I was excited about it, and that once I understood what that was, it was just like a light going off in my head that said, this is really something cool. This is something to share with others.
Actually, I can tell you that I have been, this is the real joy, and thank you very much for remembering this thing, because when phosphorus, even the titration, when UV spectrophotometer, which depends on the color producing thing, it was really fascinating. I used to guess this is 5 ppm of phosphate, and try to measure and try to resemble that whether I was right or not. So, because, you know, it is a tedious work, and I am sitting alone in front of a UV spectrophotometer. We didn't have the IC at that time. So I used to guess first and then measure, and then, so then we made fluoride estimation. Fluoride has the reverse process. I mean, if it is no, then it has the cinnabar color. I mean, a kind of redness. And that disappears with the fluoride concentration increases. That time, my guess was not right. That now I have to understand the disappearing of the color. So this has been really, really fascinating, and yeah, that's the joy, and that's where my question is: that what in the science that is that excites you, or in the technology that excites you most?
Well, I'd say it's that the chance to look below the surface, to see things that nobody else can see. That's part of the excitement. Being able to use technology to peer into the unknown. That's one thing that really excites me. A chance to create a new method or a set of equipment to do something new. That's very exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I say to my student that, you know, the aquifer where nobody goes and enters, but we can tell this water is coming from where. So we are coming, because we already talked about the technology, so I would take this little bit advice, because I have seen that a lot of my students, especially if they are civil engineers, they don't like instrumentation and analysis. So
Yeah.
how to keep them motivated, and what kind of message you will ask them to, I mean, to become a good at analysis?
So one thing I try to do when I'm in the lab with my students is ask them to describe to me in their own words what they're doing and what it means. If I can get them to describe it in a way that I can understand, I know that they really understand what they're doing. And they don't always know from the beginning. They just, most of the time, they're just following a set of procedures that have been written down and they're told to follow those procedures. But that's not really understanding what they're doing. That's not understanding the science of what they're doing. So I get them to tell me what they're doing and why. Why is this important?
Hmm. And because you have seen, you know, that you enrolled in higher education before even my birth, so you might have seen what I cannot even imagine, that what kind of progression you see in the analytical world. Of course, we have seen IT and computer and all that thing. So what kind of change have you observed?
Well, there's been two things. One, everything is driven and controlled by computers. When I started in analytical chemistry, there were almost no computers in the laboratory. And now everything is controlled by computer. That's good and bad. It's good because it does relieve some of the tedium that's associated with, say, data reduction from converting a signal into a concentration. It's bad because it takes a little bit of the science away from the person that's operating the equipment. I remember the first mass spectrometer I used had vacuum tubes, and it used a strip chart recorder, and dials basically to make
Mm.
adjustments. And having those dials and turning them and seeing the response in the equipment actually gives you a tactile sense that you cannot get with any equipment today because it's all computer controlled.
Yeah, actually, this again, I would like to cite because, of course, um, this is, I mean, in our ICP mass, our at Tokyo University, we cannot use the concentration that given by the computer. We were asked to take only the absorbance and then convert it with P by A factor, or do whatever you have to do, but you have to
Yeah.
achieve concentration by yourself. So,
Yeah, do
and
your
that
own
gives,
do your own data reduction. So that's one thing that I believe is really necessary in order to understand what you're doing, is to not trust the computer, right? Do your own data reduction and convince yourself that the computer is giving you the right answer.
this is exactly, I mean, just paraphrasing, but the exact notion that my supervisor, Professor Furumai, used to say, that don't rely on the computer, don't rely, and the models also. I mean, many of my colleagues was working on flood simulations. They said even if you will give the wrong input, they will produce a result. So
Yes.
we cannot trust the computer, and computer is made by some human being only. So
Yeah.
so you have to, and that gives a deeper understanding of the process and then errors. And at our level, it means which means that at PhD level, knowing that nuances and those variations are very, very important, and that decide the quality of publications. So when we came into the publications, of course, can you tell me just like anything that you can pick up from your all journey, whatever comes to your mind is fine. Any top three or the three publication that is close to your heart.
Mm. Well, one that I look back to that is actually pretty highly cited is one where we measured antibiotics in groundwater. At the time, I thought, well, this can't be happening. This, that there's no way that the contaminants from this livestock feeding operation can be reaching the aquifer. So I was very skeptical that the groundwater was being contaminated to the extent that it really was. So that one that was led by Angela Batt, that measured the sulfa antibiotics in groundwater, really, I think.
So I mean the paper from Idaho.
Yeah, from Idaho, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That one, I think, convinced me that, yes, this is possible. This is something that we need to worry about. And it's something I think that many people agree actually had a lot of impact on how we view antibiotics and pharmaceuticals in the environment.
I mean, this is that paper, the AGA, is the one that is the chief editor
Diana
of
Aga,
Hazardous?
yeah,
Hazardous
Diana,
materials?
yeah, she was the PhD advisor of Angela Batt.
Wow.
And I knew Diana in graduate school, so we were friends, before we even finished our PhD.
So it is, and yeah, actually, the system that you love. I mean, you were loving groundwater, and then this emerging contaminants. So I can understand that this can be one. Any other you would like to take this opportunity? If it is not coming, then we can move to the next.
Well, I think the other one that kind of comes to mind is one on wastewater contaminants, where we measured methamphetamine in sewage effluent here in Nebraska. And this is another one where I said, we should just look for this and see if it's there. And it turns out it was. So I think that's another one that I look back at and said, that was kind of a crazy idea. But at the time, it seemed like a reasonable thing to try. And we had the right type of samplers that we were using. We had the right analytical methods that we were using, and we convinced the reviewers that this was happening. So I think all those things together made for a very nice paper.
Yeah, so I mean, I have seen, the kind of time that you let the paper be mature and data be mature. Sometimes it makes me impatient, but it was nice that everything comes out at the slow cooking. So I have seen a lot of diversity in your work, and but what gives you more pleasure, that if you publish in a paper like Chemosphere or Science of Total Environment, Journal of Hazardous Material, where environmental scientist goes, or you publish in analytical chemistry or those things where some the analytical. So which paper is more dear to you? Like you have the like Journal of Chromatography, that is also very cited paper of yours. So my point is that how could you not become a biased? Because looking at your publication, I could not find any biasness. So that is why.
I know I'm kind of all over the map. So it does. I don't think I have any favorite type of journal. I look at every article and think about the real audience for that subject. And I think any student that's writing a paper really needs to spend a lot of time thinking about the audience. Who are you writing the paper to? Who is going to be interested in this particular project or this topic? I know one of the first ones that we got published in Environmental Science and Technology was one that my colleagues were excited about. And that's because it's well respected. It's a well respected journal. And I certainly appreciate it when we can get articles published in ES&T, but I always think about the audience. Who is it that we're trying to reach more so than the journal itself?
Yeah, actually that brings me to the next question. It was in my questionnaire that because now it is also the beginning of part B, where we want to take your advice for the audience, is that how to evaluate one's own work. how a student can evaluate their own works, and how can they decide, choose journal wisely to avoid rejection. Of course, it cannot be avoided completely, and stay motivated.
Those are good questions. I'd say one is to talk about your work. So go to conferences, present your work, and then invite questions. So I think one thing, if you want to go into science, if you want to go into any field in academia, you need to be open to suggestions and criticisms from the get-go. You cannot take any comments or criticisms personally, because your colleagues are trying to make your work as good as it can be.
Definitely.
And you cannot take any of those comments or criticisms personally. We're all in the business of creating new knowledge, and you have to respect your colleagues for trying to make what you're doing as good as it can be. So I think that's something young scientists don't really understand when they're getting into this field. You have to be open to different perspectives and different ways of interpreting what you're working on.
So you have answered that the target, the audience, understanding for audience for whom we are writing is one point, that we can choose journal. But can you tell me that a journal, apart from the readership, which is not very obvious, but for it needs little bit an experience to understand the readership. But people decide based on impact factor, based on editorial board, based on the publisher. So out of these three, which one is important for you?
I don't ever look at the editorial board.
Thank you for honest answer.
What I look at are the other articles that are published in that journal, and I try to imagine what my article would look like for the same type of readership. So if it's something that I'm interested in that's published in that journal, I think it's fine. That looks like a good audience for this particular paper.
But of course, that is a good thing. I mean, whether such kind of work is there or not there can be a good criteria to understand that this is a right journal for our work or not. I have seen a lot of challenges in an academic or researcher field, and lately I have been seeing a lot. But what do you think that what are the challenges you faced or an academician faced on daily life basis as a researcher, as a person?
I'd say my biggest challenge every day is having enough time to think, to respond to emails, to write, to communicate with my staff and my students. I just don't have enough time. And I've tried working on time management techniques. Some things work and some things don't work. But I see that time and time again from my colleagues is nobody seems to have enough time to get what they perceive as the most important tasks done every day.
So, I mean, time management is really nice. But you have to find a little bit solution for that, or you must be given some priority or something. So how do you tackle? And being a director, how do you manage your staffs then?
So prioritizing is I start to think about things that I have on my list and say, well, what would happen if I don't do that? Or can I give that task to somebody else to work on for me? So that's something as a director I needed to learn pretty early on was how can I delegate some of this work to the people that I supervise? And that's taken a lot of time. I'm not always good at communicating exactly how to do things. And I usually expect a response immediately. I'm somebody that really needs to get a response quickly. But that's one way to deal with time management is just to rely on your team to understand what needs to get done and your team to do many of the tasks that you find important.
Yeah, I mean, delegation is very important, but sometimes when we have to put more effort to delegate than the actually doing, then it becomes a problem.
Especially with students.
Yeah, they seem to understand very well. And when they will come, you will like, and you think that, yeah, 1 week is good time, 10 days is good time. But when they come back, oh my God.
Yeah. And that is unique to an academic environment too. I think working with students is both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because you have a new mind, right? That you maybe can help shape and make them successful, but it's also a curse because they don't always understand the urgency for accomplishing certain things. And it seems to require multiple iterations of the same statement to get them to understand that.
Yeah, I mean, this is really, I asked today Professor Damia Barcelo that how to get a good PhD student. He said, this is a lottery. You can get it, you cannot get it.
Yeah, it's all luck.
Yeah, you cannot choose. You cannot, based on some CV, based on some 20 minutes interview, you cannot choose a right person. It's a lottery. So that is, yeah. And so coming to the, again, I want to, I don't know whether this is the right question to ask, but what should we focus on? I mean, that can give us a competitive edge. I mean, I know that you are a good coach for certainly, because not only for the analysis, because the way you told me about the percolorate, now I think in India, nobody works on percolorate than me. And of course, both the analysis could have happened only because of you. So how to be at the competitive edge? I mean, how to find a new contaminant of interest, or how to, yeah, what to do to excel more?
Well, I think going to meetings helps. I try to go to conferences and talk to people. I scan the talks, the presentations, and I try to attend a few and listen to new ideas. It's hard to find because there's a lot of topics and talks at a conference, but that's one place where you might find something that, yeah, this person is also observing the same thing that I am, or this is an idea that seems similar to my idea. Maybe this is something that we need to build on. So finding new information at conferences and through journal articles is one way, I think, to advance. In doing any science, it's not in a vacuum. That's something my master's advisor said. You can't do science in a vacuum. You have to do it as a group with your peers, and that has to happen continuously.
Wow, that is really nice message. I hope, actually, my effort is to bring that kind of answer. So I'm sorry if that needs to put difficult questions or meaningless question. But yeah, I can tell you one example with me is that I was very fascinated about CO2 emission due to groundwater extraction because of the carbonate change, because of the partial pressure change of the CO2 in the aquifer and the atmosphere. And the first paper that I read on the topic was McPherson from Kansas State University. And then I went to GSA, and one person was making a presentation because it was related to that much, not exactly on that. And two questions were asked. One I asked, and one a lady asked, quite a senior lady. And later on, she came to me and said, your question were nice. So I said, and you? Oh, I am McPherson. I was like, oh my God, am I true? I mean, I tried to work with her but something not materialized. We didn't have a lot of data, and she wanted to. This one also I have seen in some of the scientists that they don't want to replicate their work. Sometimes they want to make an advancement. Yeah. She said that I already estimated this for entire USA. So if we can add to something to this for India, we can. I am happy to be part of it. So many times I have seen the several. Of course, every kind of the researcher makes a sense and has a place, but that one was very unique. Now moving to the next is that how to manage a lab. And what is your principle or ways to solve the conflicts? Of course, in USA,
Well,
not much conflict.
Yeah, there's conflicts every day. Yeah. I'd say to manage a lab, you have to have a vision. You know, you have to look into the future and see, or believe where your laboratory needs to be, say 5 years from now, and try to work from that perspective. It's very easy to just try to solve tasks and problems on a daily basis, but it's harder to look into the future and try to imagine what it would look like in the future. So keeping a long-term vision for a laboratory is really important, whether it's something like the water sciences laboratory or a personal laboratory. What is it? What are your goals in the long term? And then solving conflicts, I think that requires a lot of people skills, and that's something I've had to learn the hard way. Is every person, every student, every staff member is different, and I have to learn to appreciate and understand their perspective in solving conflicts. They don't see things the way that I do, so if I can put myself in their shoes, it makes it way easier to solve conflicts that always arise when you're working in groups of people.
So, I mean, you told, that could be a very good answer, crisp answer, but I am not sure that my audience will be able to. So can we get some practical things to do, not to do kind of thing?
Okay. Practical things for running a laboratory.
And solving the conflict or avoiding the conflict incidents.
Well, I mean, really practical stuff is keeping your budgets in order. So the finances of a laboratory is like, managing the staff requires that you constantly check in with them and that you go over tasks and help them to solve the problems that they run into. I think that's part of conflict management, is learning to teach your staff and your students how to solve their own problems. So keeping the workload on schedule. That's one thing in a laboratory like ours, is that we have a very large influx of samples in our summer, during our summertime, and trying to make sure that we have everybody focused on getting those processed in a timely manner. So I think those are two things that I can think of, is that you teach who you're working with how to solve their own problems.
Fair enough. Now, this is that what do you look into a CV or a person before recruiting or before saying yes for PhD or for a staff position or for hire?
For a PhD, I'm usually asking them what they want to use it for. If they want to go on and be in a research laboratory or in academics, I tell them this is something that you only do for your personal benefit. You don't get a PhD for the money. You don't do it to guarantee success in a career. Really, a PhD is something that has to be a personal goal, a personal choice, because there are not that many jobs for PhDs, and you can certainly get a good paying job with a bachelor's or a master's degree in comparison. So I don't always encourage my graduate students to go on for a PhD for that reason. It's not just to get a better job.
So we were talking about the CV and how you select the staff or position and something.
Right. I look at their publications, and this could even go with the student. If they don't have any papers, then I would look at their conference presentations, anything that they published, because writing is extremely important in science. And if you don't know how to write, if you don't know how to get information and knowledge out into the literature, then you're not going to be successful. So that's one of the first things I look at, is how well they write.
What about me?
You can write well. Yeah, you can write well. You've had a lot of practice.
So actually, I wanted to know that, yes, writing is really, I mean, after that, if somebody is little bit, I can tolerate a lot, a person who knows how to write. So then, and how to derive the information from a figure or from a data, how to make a story. Those things are very highly important for me. But other than these publications and these attributes, what another two attributes that you rate high?
I look at their practical experience. Practical experience could be what they did as they were in school, or even before they started school, what kind of work they did. Because I feel like the more practical experience that you have, the more successful that you will be in academia or in research. If you've worked at a job where you have to use your hands, where you have to understand how to solve problems, you're going to be much more successful in a research career.
Yeah. I mean, this part 2 is about to complete because you know where to stop. Otherwise, but because you have dealt with a lot of contaminants, because my next section is about being human. So there we would like to know your interest and those things. But here it is about the research. That what do you think is the top 3 challenges at present from the environmental perspective or analytical perspective, and whether such this problem of today is going to change in a decade?
Well, I think the most critical problem that our planet faces today is the population of humans on this planet. It's increasing at an alarming rate. And the more people that we have on this planet, the more our resources are going to be stressed. It's not just a matter of producing enough food. We all require a greater standard of living, a better standard of living. And with that, we have more pollution emitted into the environment, a greater stress on our natural resources. Basically, we're going to run out of supplies to maintain our standard of living with the number of people that we're predicted to have.
I wanted to understand that a decade, what kind of change? So in a decade, population is going to increase, so more stress, more pollution, and that way those things will come. Okay, fine. So now your advice to 3 people. I mean, a person who is yet to start for PhD, person about to complete their PhD, means they are trying to find a job and which job they should try, and whether it is good to wait or find a job that they really want, or it is better to have some postdoc or not, and for becoming a good administrator.
Okay, so for somebody contemplating a PhD, I go back to, why do you want to get the degree? What do you want to use it for? Because it really is, it's a personal choice. So not so much as a career choice, but it's something that you're doing for your own personal benefit. So that's what I would tell any student that's contemplating going on for a doctorate. Really closely look at your motivation and how you hope to benefit from having a PhD. For someone that's just close to finishing their doctorate, I would ask them the same question, only a little bit differently. So how do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself working? I always encourage more experience. So no matter what your career choice is, You need experience to judge where you're going to be. And that experience can range from any type of academic or learning experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be directly related to what you've been studying during your doctorate. So I think it's good to get out and learn about other areas of science or engineering because more well-rounded and more marketable in a really tough job market.
Good.
And then for
hmm.
administrator, I think that was the other question is,
yeah.
I think the thing that I would advise administrators is to be kind.
Yeah.
It's really hard when you're leading a group of people or you're leading a program to look at things from the people that you're managing from their perspective. But I think being kind is the hardest thing you can do, and the best thing that you can do for those people is just to look at it from their perspective and try to explain the choices that you make as an administrator so that people understand that sometimes things are difficult to do, but this is why we need to do them.
Yeah, WSL is certainly is in kind hands. I can tell that. So this is last part is being human. Let's just start with what excites you about every day work? Apart from the flame, the instrument is calling you, the job nature is calling you, but something that excites you and say that, okay.
What gets me up in the morning, huh?
Yeah.
I'd say the challenges. I like to solve problems. I think sometimes I'm pretty good at it. So if I have a problem that's presented to me, actually thinking about it while I'm sleeping helps me come up with a solution. And that's something that energizes me when I can find a solution to a problem that others are facing and then share that with them just as quickly as I can. That will get me up in the morning. And it can be a technical problem or a social problem or a science problem. It can be any kind of problem, but if I can come up with a solution, that's something that gets me up in the morning.
Very well said. Very well said. So tell me, what do you like to do when you are not working?
Well, we have a small acreage, so I spend a lot of time mowing grass or tending to my garden. For hobbies, I like to go scuba diving. So I like to read about scuba diving and dream about places to go and go scuba diving.
But there is no picture of a scuba on Facebook.
Yeah, actually, I've got a few. My kids are all certified scuba divers, so we kind of go scuba diving as a family once in a while. So I like doing that.
Yeah, this is a very nice, fascinating world. Even so that there also you do water searching and going and finding those things. How do you handle pressure?
I take a breath. I try to think when I go under pressure.
No, you whistle. You whistle too.
I do. I whistle a lot. So whistling keeps me kind of relaxed. So you're right. I do whistle. I try to give myself a chance to think when I'm under pressure. Be patient with myself and just work through them through issues or concerns, urgency. It seems like the more pressure I'm under, the more focused I can get. So I think pressure is actually good for me. I can really get focused on the problems that are around me at the moment.
Yeah, actually, the kind of answer you gave, it's amazing that you said that I want to provide time to myself to think more. These are beautiful words, but your answer is so make you qualified to get another 2 minutes to talk about this one, that how to handle pressure, please?
Well, I think one thing that at least I try to remember when I'm under pressure is that I'm responsible for other people, and it's not just about me. It's about other people that are working with me to keep our program going, to complete the tasks and our mission at hand. And when I think about that, when it's not just me, it makes it easier for me to be calm and to try to come up with solutions to the problems that we're facing. If it was just me, it would be much easier for me to panic. But I really try to think about other people around me at the time.
Yeah, I mean, now I can understand that I can understand well, or that you said that if there is a more pressure, I am more focused. As a director, as the leader, that's a true leader. Whoever becomes more focused, more determined in the hard time are the leaders. Otherwise, you cannot lead a group, and that one. But that I also saw it in myself, or even many more. But when it is a personal problems, when it is a something is going bad at job, or a bad at family, or bad at your kids, that pressure how you handle? Actually, that is most difficult, tricky.
Yeah.
I am not good at that. I am very good at professional ones, but
yeah. Yeah, I know what you're asking. I think I have a pretty high tolerance for drama.
wow.
I learned early on that my kids, and many kids for families that we work or play with, they can exhibit a lot of drama. And I learned early on that they just do that as a way to release tension. And I've learned to just be very patient and let them be dramatic. And they get over it. That's something I've learned that really has been helpful, is that it's not always about me. In fact, most of the time it's not about me. It's just something that they need to do.
And it is a good way to handle wife also.
Exactly. Yeah, men and women are very different. So I've learned that. Over the years.
Okay, so actually I have asked you already the next question. Balancing family life and professional ambitions.
I'm not very good at it.
That's a good answer. You can always use that. Don't ask me.
Yeah, I'm not really good at balancing personal and professional life. I'm always.
So you take your work home.
I do. I get on my computer when I get up in the morning. I like to look for journal articles. You'll find myself surfing the internet while I'm watching TV, just because I like to think. I like to explore. So it's tough for me to separate my professional life from my personal life. I think I do that better when I'm away from home. So I like to take trips. And when I take trips, I'm much better at not responding to email or surfing the internet. I actually learn how to be more of a regular person when I'm on a trip.
Yeah, that's a good thing that we need to learn. So it comes because you already answered my question. That my next two questions were your three major strengths and something you are not good at it. So maybe you have replied something not good at it. So you can talk about your three major strengths.
Well, I think I like to solve problems. I'd say that's a strength. I like to think about problems as just a part of life, that we need to learn how to respond to those challenges or those problems and come up with solutions. So I think I'm pretty good at solving problems. Another strength that I have is I like to write. I enjoy writing. I've never felt like I've done it really well, but
No, so writing what? Writing journals, writing book, writing stories?
Yeah, just writing anything. I early on I found that I had a talent for writing, so I like to write.
So do you just write ANYTHING, anything?
Sometimes, yeah.
So I am saying that, yeah, you love writing, and maybe if you are in the mood today of writing journal, you will write journal. If you are in a mood of writing poem or a story, but
yeah.
What is your, the most often that you write? Are you a regular journal writer? Because that is a good, the regular, do you write your daily or things?
I used to write in a journal, a personal journal, but I don't anymore. I did find
it's dangerous.
Yeah, I found when I was writing a lot that it would help me process information, but it requires time. It requires a chance to do some self-reflection, and I don't always allow myself time to do that. But I like to write. I think it's something I'm pretty good at. It's something I don't really allow myself enough time to do.
So it comes to my next question is that do you think you are going to write a book or maybe memoir or maybe a principal after retirement?
That's one of my goals, yeah, is to write a book.
On what? The fictional, non-fictional, or some like we have a lot of books who says that how to lead a life.
No. I think I'd like to share my thoughts on the state of our planet and our water resources. Yeah. I think water is something I'm pretty passionate about. So if I could contribute to something that anybody could pick up and read and understand, that's something I'd like to write, is my perspective of how valuable this resource is to our planet, and get everyone to better appreciate how important water is for our survival.
Wow. So this is a good thing. I didn't know that you are a very skillful writing, and actually writing makes me, and I feel that now I have diverted my writing time to journal writing or paper writing. Otherwise, I have been a writer. Whether I used to write poems in the childhood or journal every day I will write. Now again, I am not allowing, because I know if I will write, I will become angry on myself. So I don't write. I am scared of diary because it looks like a guardian to me. Because I cannot be dishonest. No? And then there was a phase when I used to write a lot of love letters. So writing has been happening.
Yeah.
Okay. You are the now we are at the fag end, and we will take a rapid fire. Rapid fire kind of thing is that I will ask your favorite things, and you have to quickly answer. You can think take a time if you want to rearrange it. So your favorite food?
Spicy, anything spicy. I like really
Mexican
hot,
or Indian? Food. Mexican or Indian?
Both. I like Indian food.
Thank you for saying
I know that's not really Indian, but I like curries.
So, what is your favorite drink?
Beer.
Beer. Any favorite brand? Black beer or? Okay.
No, I can't.
What about your favorite possession? Your hat, maybe?
My favorite possession?
Yeah.
A guitar. I have a 12-string Martin guitar.
Ah. Wow. So you can play it?
Yeah, I can play. Yeah.
Favorite book?
I'd say my favorite author is Kurt Vonnegut.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite by Kurt Vonnegut is Slaughterhouse-Five.
Wow. I didn't. I will check because the. And what about favorite movie?
Catch-22.
So do you watch movie?
Oh yeah.
Oh, so who is your favorite actor, female and male?
Favorite actor. I'd
So
say
it is not favorite.
yeah.
Because you are taking so much time, so it is no more favorite.
Yeah. I'd say Clint Eastwood is one of my favorite actors. Clint Eastwood is a good actor. I like
especially
his movies.
when he acts in that movie. That I love.
Yeah.
I mean, when he only directs, that gives me half joy. But when he is acting,
when
I
he's in
love
there,
it.
yeah, I do too.
Yeah. And any female actress or actor?
Female, I'd say I like quirky actresses like Holly Hunter. She's pretty quirky.
Yeah.
I like
What about?
actresses that are more people like. Yeah.
Oh, more people. So your favorite trip in the past, and any destination you want to go?
Yeah, well, a recent trip where I got to go with my kids was to go scuba diving in Cozumel, Mexico. That was right before COVID hit, so that's one of my most favorite recent trips. We spent a week scuba diving.
And any place that you want to go in coming years?
I'm planning a trip to Kazakhstan in September.
Kazakhstan, you always go. You have been there for 2-3 times.
I like Kazakhstan. I really enjoy visiting the people there. I have some good friends in Kazakhstan.
Yeah, I need to go and explore.
I
Why
like
you
India
like it
too.
so much?
Why do I like it so much? I think it's the people.
Yeah. I think so. This is the most important factor, because it's people that attract us. Okay, so this is we come to the end. Last but not the least is that if you were not an academician, what you would have been?
So I mentioned at the beginning I had a chance to be a farmer. I've often wondered what my life would have been like if I had chosen that profession. I think I could have been a good farmer. I don't know that I would have been as happy as I've been with science as my profession, but I think I could have been a farmer.
Actually, this last question, I have been very much, that this is the last question. So, so I always thought that whether I should keep it or not. But in last 2-3 days, I am seeing amazing answers for this question. And it also say something like at the end, it concludes what you are at your heart. And it also concludes like your hobbies and many things. So this question is doesn't look that much, but answer makes me thinking. So what I can say, I can only say that thank you very much. I had a chance to know you more closely, but today I saw a person with very entirely different things, and I am quite sure that these videos will be watched and watched and watched over and over again. And because this such kind of experience will be very invaluable.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed the interview, and I hope somebody benefits from it.
Yeah, definitely it will be.